What's up, Bridal Babes? I hope you're ready for another exciting episode of your favorite local wedding show, Bridal Buzz. I'm your host, Kat, and today we're in the studio with Chris and Julie from Future Sounds, your go-to entertainment company for all of your wedding needs here in San Antonio. Today we're going to talk about a special new service that they're providing, cake mapping. And with that, let's get started. Chris and Julie, thank you so much for coming in today. We appreciate you being here.
Certainly, glad to be here.
Yeah, let's just get started with a little bit about both of you. How did you end up in the entertainment world? I think that's a good place to start.
Well, I started many years ago. Actually, my father used to play music at the church picnics and different functions for his business when I was just a kid. And so I was around kind of the DJ thing a long time ago. They loved to dance, so I grew up learning how to dance and all that fun stuff. Never really picked up an instrument. But as I made my way into my teens, I found myself still being kind of the funny guy in classes. And then, although Julie says that I'm not really funny,
it's not funny.
But on a rare occasion I am. But in high school, I was very interested in audiovisual type stuff and did stuff around school. And then one of my buddies got me involved in video here in San Antonio at a local teen station. So I started off with video then. And then as we were there, we were working with the radio guys. They were doing our top 10s. And then I became very interested in that. It seemed like a natural progression. And then I went and did some internships at radio stations. And that was back in 1985 is when I started with the TV radio. I was 15, 16 years old doing internships.
Wow.
And then at 17, I did my first radio internship. And then at 18, I started working with my own part-time show. And then eventually went to full-time and worked in radio for about 10 years.
What were those shows about? You
know, back then it was about personalities. So it's very different than what radio is now. I mean, you still have like your Bobby Bones and other, like Julie used to love listening to Kid Craddock. So you have those personalities like that. So back then it was more of a free form. You still had to follow whatever format you were playing at a particular radio station, whether it was country or rock or jazz or whatever kind of genre it was. But it was more about the personality presenting the music. And so you had kind of a more of a free format. And you can really do almost whatever within certain bounds of the FCC.
Whatever's legally allowed.
So it's still a lot different than what it is now, but it was a lot of fun. And I thought I was going to do it for the rest of my life. But around 1993, while I was doing the radio work, I was working in some of the clubs to go do promotional stunts and things like that. And I met a guy that said, "Hey, Chris, we were looking for some people like you. Would you be interested in being a mobile disc jockey?" And I didn't really think I'd be going that direction, but I did it. And it kind of gave me the same feel for being in the studio, but yet I could see immediate response to if I did something funny or interactive with someone, I had an audience. And so that made it, that kind of gave me that same feel. And so needless to say, I started doing it on the side, and years later, here I am.
And when did Future Sounds become an official thing? Future
Sounds began in 1998. So around November of 1998, I was working with some other companies. Started in 93 with one company here in town, and then another friend of mine that I was actually doing something at Fiesta, Texas. He's like, "Chris, you should come work with me." And I said, "Okay." So needless to say, I went and worked with that company. And after a few years of doing those two different companies, I decided on starting my own. A lot of friends that I had in the industry said, "Chris, you should start your own business. It's just your personality and the way you do things are a bit different." So I said, "Sure, why not?" And so I did that in 98, and that's a few years away now from 25 years of having Future Sounds. And started off primarily focused on weddings and doing the entertainment thing and providing lighting, which has always been a part of that. But what led us to where we are today is that I had clients who would say, "Hey, we want to have a slideshow." And so back then, of course, projectors weren't cheap, but slowly invested in projection systems. And so I had those for slideshows or other types of presentations that some of my clients wanted to do. The next thing that we started with was when we went from projection. After I met Julie, we
Which
added
was
some.
when did Julie come
Julie came into the picture around 2013.
Okay.
And so she would start going to the different shows with me, and she's like, "Oh, I could probably help out with that." So next,
I am
not necessarily the music stuff.
Let's hear your side of the story.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
And this way, everything I say, you can just kind of scratch that, check that off. That was incorrect according to Julie. But so in I guess it was around 2015, 2016, we added uplighting because it was kind of a new thing to have, and so we started with kind of more traditional plug-in, and now of course it's battery operated and wireless. But we were at an open house one day, and there was this girl doing calligraphy. And so Julie said, you should put a big chalkboard above your lighting system. And
Simple.
Simple, yeah.
Simple
and I was
steps.
and I just imagine myself here, we'd have some person come in and do this amazing calligraphy, the bride and groom's name, and I'd be putting that thing up there, and all of a sudden I'd turn and I'd hit part of the chalk, and I'm like, I just messed it up. So then I took it a level further than that, and I'm like, I'll do digital signage. I worked for many years at UTSA, and I was responsible for their digital signage network. So we're doing digital signage, and made that a product. In some places where we couldn't do a monogram or a gobo, I said I'll bring in these flat screen monitors, a big display sat above my light system, and we can do their names and pictures and all kinds of really cool stuff. And that's what essentially now has led us to this cake mapping direction, because it's somewhat similar, different in many ways. But I had a client, Mac, this past summer that called for my DJ services, and then she says, hey, I have another question. Have you ever heard of cake mapping? And I'm like, well, yes, I have. And I just recently seen a presentation from another friend of mine. I'm part of several organizations, and a gentleman from the Orlando chapter that we have, he works at Disney. He was coming in to talk about things they do at Disney, different services and special events. And one of the pieces he talked about was cake mapping. So I thought it was pretty neat. Of course, the Disney way is really cool. They have some amazing people that work with them. And so, I watched them like, okay, pretty cool. And I kind of left it at that. So when the bride had asked me about it, I'm like, well, I'm familiar with it, but I've never really done it. I believe I have some of the technology, but just have never really researched it. And so I started researching it, and got really excited about it. And I was looking at some of the programs they suggested, and then finally found a piece of software that I really liked. And after we met with the bride and groom, I'm like, well, the freeware software is not the way to go. So I invested into some new stuff, and I had to get some new computers and things like that to kind of handle the amount of processing it takes. And then Julie started seeing some of the stuff, and she was getting excited about it.
She's like, ooh, let me try that out.
Yeah, and I think for both of us, it's I've always had kind of a creative niche to the things I do, and although most of it is more it's a lot of talk and entertainment with music wise, but I think both of us have a graphics background too, where we like that creative side. With cake mapping, you can really customize it that much to where you can have either some type of static image, whether it's some type of stock photo or some type of personal photo, or you can do video. And with the cake mapping, you can have a singular image that covers the whole cake, which when we're talking about a cake, you're looking at 3 to 5 layers. Each layer is about 5 inches, and then that kind of gives you the best kind of footprint to put those images on. So this way, if you're really, just this past weekend we did our first cake, and it was a 4-inch cake and only 3 layers, and it didn't really give as much. When we were doing our dummy cake at the house, we were using the 5-inch 5 layer, and it really just popped versus the one this past weekend. So it really gives you the ability to really either have an image on each layer or the full cake, and there's just so many different things. But it I spent several hours doing stuff, and she would be laughing at me. She goes, what, you were up till 3 in the morning?
I didn't get anything done.
And then
I feel that. Yeah.
As she started diving into it, then she kind of felt the pain of sitting there and really diving down some rabbit holes, and like, man, I've been sitting here for 3 hours or 4 hours, and all I did was this. So.
It really is a whole new technology that you have to learn from scratch.
It is. Like we're offering a 1-side, a 2-side, or a 4-side. We're doing a square cake. And I've had some people ask about round cakes. It's like, well, is it possible? Yes, it is. But it's just like if you were to get a big sticker and walk down to your local telephone pole and stick it on there, and it starts to wrap around the telephone pole, it's going to be slightly askew. So it's not going to be perfectly, the face is going to be not like you would expect it to be. So when it comes down to mapping, then that's when it becomes more difficult, because every layer and every surface, you're essentially mapping to that rectangular shape.
Square is definitely better.
So square is definitely better, and
Keep
about
that in
5
mind,
inches
Bridal
is good as we go forward. So that's kind of where Julie came in. She would be laughing at me as I was trying all these different things, and what are you doing? And she'd be watching, and then she was getting excited because she said, this could be something that we could really, really explore and really let our our inner child of having fun and being creative and designing stuff. And so that's where Julia has jumped in to join part of that, because it gives her that outlet.
And where did you originally jump in? So I heard 2013, but were you expecting all of this when you came in, or?
When I first came in, it was basically, when are you going to have time for me? Because you're a DJ. I looked at his schedule and it's like, how am I going to date somebody who works all the time?
All the evenings and all the weekends.
Prime time.
Yep.
And so that was one of the things we always discussed. And then it's like, oh, I'll go out on a few weddings with him. And it's like, oh, well, went to the first one. I was exhausted because it was so high energy, and it's like, this is not for me. And then we ended up, it's like, well, maybe I can, he'll teach me how to do it. I know no songs, no artists. I'm the worst DJ ever. I do more like political stuff, something very low-key background music. That's my speed.
Yeah, she likes the ones that you get there and like, can you turn down that a bit? Yeah, so she does, and it's like, oh, just a little bit more, and it's like, okay, I'll just put on my headphones and play it for myself, because
that's my speed.
Glad you're having a conversation, but you're really not listening to the music, so that's good. But that's
DJ
Julie's speed
for everybody. Then. Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, so but that wasn't really my thing. I knew I wasn't good at it, and I know he's good at it, and I can't compare myself to him, so it's like, why even try? And so we did a few different things. I'd come up with some ideas, like, we talked about doing the uplighting, and then we did the screens and things like that. It's like more work for him. I can come up with the ideas. He just has to do all the work. So he was telling me about the deal with the cake mapping, and it's like, oh, so, I'd watched him and seen what he's doing. It's like, oh, but that's not very bride-like, and it's a guy's perspective. He goes, but it's really cool. I go, but it's not very girly, And so he goes, well, let's see what you got. So I spent, when I got off my other job, I would spend just hours sitting there going through, looking at different photos. And it's like, oh, well, this is sort of cool. This is cool. And then I tried doing it as I was going along. It took forever. So I just spent one night, that's all I did for over 6 hours. I looked for photos, and then it's like I went and I pieced them together, and I came up with some really cool ideas and stuff. And it's like, probably not what he's gonna like, but he actually did like a few of them, so I was really impressed.
And I've always told her, and even other friends of mine in the industry, I said, when it comes down, I said, I have my perspective and on the way things in entertainment kind of should unfold at a particular event, but still, when you have for brides, having a female perspective of someone coming in saying, oh, you're just going to say it differently, you're going to talk about it differently. And so the things that she's been bringing out and really putting in and organizing into the folders for the designs is really something that's like, it's not necessarily more soft, it's just, it's different with the textures, with the colors, and things that maybe I don't really resonate with me.
I did some hard, edgy stuff too. I did the Harley Davidson and metals.
Yeah, she did some really cool things I didn't think about again, but it's another perspective that just offers some more insight to someone. I was like, oh, that's really neat, and I like the things she did. So it's nice having that different perspective, and who knows what she's going to come up with next.
Yes, especially in a world of weddings where everything is super personalized. As many options as you can have in different styles and tastes is great. Before we keep going on cake mapping, I just want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Texas Wedding Ministers. They can help you find the perfect officiant for your wedding at any venue. They can help you find the perfect destination for your event to happen wherever you want it to be. They're an amazing team here in San Antonio, so if you're looking for an officiant, destination wedding, elopement, you name it, they got you covered. Check them out today on sanantonioweddings.com, and let's keep talking about cake mapping.
Yeah, Renee Aspar is a really great person to work with, and they can really fit any type of ceremony with, depending on your family and friends and personalities. They have a person that fits your name.
They're like the matchmaker for the officiant.
Yes.
We love them. We love you guys. Let's talk cake mapping. So when a bride is approaching this, what are some important things for her to keep in mind? So we know round cakes don't work that well. Definitely we want to go with a flat edge cake. Is there anything else that she needs to keep in mind?
Well, I think some of the things that you need to keep in mind is that positioning inside the room. So when you're thinking about doing something like this, there are some key elements to it. It's like, okay, so we're going to be having this slim fit projector that we're going to be sticking out. It's on a stand. It has to be out there because that's the way the cake gets illuminated. So we've been trying to figure out really a nice way of hiding this thing. Right now, it's all skirted. It's all in black to kind of make it blend in, so you don't really stick out. The cake's going to be illuminated, but we're running power out to the projector, and then depending on the setup, 1 or 2 projectors of what we're using. So those things are to be out there. Now we can space those things out about 5 to 6 feet away from the cake. So this way, when you're looking at the cake, you don't see something right next to it. I can do probably a shorter throw type of projector, but then you're closer to the projector. So we kind of tried to find that happy medium of saying far enough away, but yet there's still something that needs to be there. But again, I was mentioning positioning because depending on the space that you place it in, you're going to have that area that's going to be taken up with the footprint of your cake, and then these other pieces of technology. Other things that we've invested in was stanchions, because we have to kind of block that off. Because if someone hits the cake table or hits the projector, it's just not something you can easily kind of move back into place. Because if depending on how much it gets moved, it's not just one angle. It could be, 8 angles or 10 angles of just 2 sides. And it could be real, it could be fake. So those are all different things that when you start talking to the baker, you can decide whether or not you want to have maybe the top layer real if you really want to cut into it. Or lately, I think we were talking to our baker, and she was giving some great information about how that process has been occurring at weddings, and how she's been not making as many real cakes because people just...
They don't want to, because of COVID and everything, they don't want people coming up around their cake and breathing on it, coughing. Yeah. So what they're doing
touching
is...
it.
Yeah, touching it. It's like, ooh, is that good?
Giving it little kisses.
Yeah.
And so she's doing a lot more dummy cakes, the most she's ever done in the time she's ever been baking.
Trend to look out for, Bridal Babes. Yep.
And so what we could do then, she has the layered cakes in the back, they cut it back there, but then the good thing about it is your design, it runs throughout the whole entire event. So those who didn't get a chance when they first walk in the reception, they can come in and they can look at the cake, and then throughout the evening. And then the big thing that I noticed is when they went up to get the piece of cake, they looked at the cake and it was still moving. Had the video still going on it, and then it's like, it's over there. Yeah. So they had a special cake or table for their cakes to pick up their cake to eat and everything. And this way, then when they do come up to get it, they can still see what's going on. People are just going, oh my gosh, I'm just so amazed. This is so cool. I've never seen anything like it. So it's like an art piece.
It really is. Yeah.
Yes. And that was one thing that Disney talked about. It's like, this is one thing. It's the bridal cake has always been kind of a centerpiece in the average reception. Right. So it's like, now you can make it an art piece. It's not just something that you can, you've always been able to really custom design your cake. And even with some of the really amazing cake bakers, they'll get in there and do some really amazing designs. I've seen Aggie rings, and I've seen ice coolers and all kinds of really cool deer heads and fish, and it's a really amazing things. And not taken away from that, because there's still a place for that. This gives you a chance to have something similar to that in more of a digital fashion, but it could be that to start with, and then it could change, and it could be like Julie saying, it's one side is for the bride,
she side, and then the he side.
Hey.
And then again, the real or fake. It could be a completely fake cake. You can have some pieces that could be real. The caveat to that is when it comes down to when you're looking at a styrofoam cake that has the icing on it, it actually has edges, where a real cake may not have that edge. So doesn't matter that much. No, we can always angle things when we're mapping it out a certain way. But again, real or fake is a matter of preference on that. Like the couple this weekend, they had a small cake to the side that they actually cut next to the cake. So again, that smaller cake could have been placed up on the top, or they just had it to the side.
And so when couples are booking you, they need to work with this specific baker, even if they're picking a dummy cake.
Right. Okay. Right. Because this way she's going to know the dimensions, and I guess the best method to saying if this is what you're looking for, this is why it's being done.
Right. I think that's great. I think it makes it check both things off the list at once. You don't need to worry about all of it. You got 2 vendors in one right there. So that's great. And then when it comes to the images and the videos that you can project, are there any limitations with that?
Not really. I guess the most important factor in that is resolution. So if like even with the digital signage, I had some people that gave me pictures that were from 1970 or 60, so they were taken on this small little camera that had just it was great for then, but when you try and blow that up to HD 1080p, it's very grainy. In black and white, colors, they somewhat matter, but if it's a poor quality photo or video to begin with, then we're taking it up to a non-scalable resolution. So it has to be HD quality, both the videos, any designs, because otherwise they're just gonna not look good.
Okay. Is there anything else you want our couples to know about you guys and cake mapping and what you can provide?
It's about you.
Yeah.
It's not what we think that we don't give you a small selection. The sky's the limit. I may want a traditional cake with the, the gold pin or beads on it and stuff like that. I can have that, and actually the baker goes, oh my gosh, it's so many hours less that I have to work than you just put it up there. And that was one of the favorite ones people have been drawn to. They go, isn't that real? I go, no, it's just an image.
It's just a texture.
It's just a texture. So there's so many different things that you can do, and it could just be the groom's cake and she can have her traditional wedding cake done up, or vice versa. And the sky's the limit.
The neat thing is that you can have your cake and you can eat it too.
Hey.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe don't eat the dummy, but.
Yeah. Little foamy, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd agree with Julie. I think there's so many neat ways that you can really personalize it. I mean, that element was out there before, but now you can say it's not just, a few different pieces of who we are as a couple. Now we can have several elements of who we are to express ourselves throughout the evening. Yeah. And even with our cake person, we were talking to her about it, and she goes, yeah, I could, to do some of these designs, she says, I could spend, 6 hours, 8 hours on designing that thing that they want. She goes, but now I can really, take more time to do what she loves, which is baking. And the design is part of that for many, but some like to bake too. And it's not necessarily, okay, I can spend a day doing this one design, or I can really, service more clients, and we can implement that as an aside to help them out with that. So a lot of opportunity for both sides, really, when it comes down to it. And when it comes down to the brides and the grooms and the couples, I mean, again, the sky is the limit of what they can do. I mean, there's some limitations, let's say, to the amount of information you want to stick on the cake, because at some point, if you have too much stuff, it's just going to be a lot of noise, and people aren't going to know what's happening. So we've tried to kind of come up with some different packages that kind of help alleviate that by saying, here's some good rules of thumb.
And where can our couples find those packages if they're interested in learning more?
You can find those packages on the website is cakemappingsa.com.
Okay.
So if you go there, you'll see that on the World Wide Web. Can I still say that, or is it is out there somewhere in the whole virtual world, the World Wide Web?
Google it.
Google it, yeah. I haven't paid for that yet on Google, so I don't know if I'm the top one, but I'm working on that.
Okay.
But yes, you can Google it. If you go to our main website, Future Sounds, there's also a tab there that'll take you to the website, but cakemappingsa.com.
Perfect. Well, thanks guys so much, Julie and Chris, for being here. I learned a lot. I hope you guys did too, Bridal Babes. Just remember, Texas Wedding Ministers, today's sponsor. Amazing, amazing, amazing company to help you find the perfect officiant or elopement situation that you're looking for. Again, Future Sounds, Cake Mapping SA, an incredible way to add something unique to your wedding that I think nobody has ever seen before. Specifically in a 2022 wedding, this is going to be a very brand new concept. So if you're looking for that extra oomph for your special day, you know who to call. And if you want to see this in person, this weekend, January 16th, is the Wedding Fair show at the JW Marriott Resort and Spa. Chris and Julie will be there to show you guys how cool this is. So head on over to Wedding Fair Show.
Favorite schools, whatever. I mean, we're going to have all the major school logos will be emblazed on the cake, and some other really cool things. So.
There you go. So head on over to weddingfairshow.com, get your tickets today for that. And with that, let's go ahead and wave to this camera and say bye.
Bye.